Shalom, my dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to another Bible study with me, your host, Abraham. Charles Spurgeon said, "Faith is a silver thread upon which the pearls of the graces are to be hung. Break that, and you have broken the string. The pearls lie scattered on the ground." Let's close our eyes to pray. In you, O Lord, I put my trust. I trust in you. Do not let me be put to shame. Do not let my enemies triumph over me. Show me your ways. Lord, teach me your paths. Guide me your truth and teach me. For you are my God, my Savior, and my hope is in you all day long. Amen. By the end of this Bible study, we aim to understand how faith works and what we can do to expel fear out from our daily lives. Most of us fear something or the other in our daily lives. For example, the fear of snakes, bugs, the fear of death, the fear of missed mortgage payment. In fact, the list is endless. It goes on and on. But it's now time to learn how Satan paralyzes us using his secret weapon called fear. Phobos is the Greek root word from which the English word fear is derived. According to Greek mythology, Phobos is the Greek god of fear and the brother of Deimos, which means terror or dead. Phobos means to withdraw from God, or to separate from the presence of God, or to flee from the presence of God. Therefore, let me explain with some biblical examples how Satan paralyzes people with his secret weapon called fear. In our first example, we read about Goliath when he comes out to face the trained and experienced army of the Israelites. It is recorded that the Israelites, when they saw Goliath, they fled from him and was terrorized and greatly afraid. And for 40 long days, they lived in fear. And they had to wait till David, the 17-year-old lad who comes out to face off Goliath. And we see here that David's eyes were focused on Christ, the only Savior, on whom he looked for help. David's focus was on God and not on man. That's what helped David defeat Goliath. And David, in fact, used Goliath's own sword to behead him. Now let's see another example from the book of Numbers chapter 13, where the Israelites saw themselves as grasshoppers in front of the Anakites who possessed the land flowing with milk and honey called Canaan. As we go on to read the book of Numbers chapters 13 and 14, we understand that Moses is selecting and sending out 12 spies to investigate and search the promised land called Canaan. Once the job is done and on their return, apart from Caleb and Joshua, the rest of the team brought an evil report saying that those who live there are men of great stature, the sons of Anak. Now the Anaks or the Anakims are the giants whose descendants are Goliath, and in front of them that these Israelites said that they felt that they looked like grasshoppers. As soon as the Israelites heard this report, they lifted up their voice and cried and wept the whole night. In fact, they went ahead and cursed God, saying, "If only we had died in Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?" And they said to each other, "We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt." Now Caleb and Joshua, who was part of the spies, spoke up to the people of Israel in the name of the Lord and encouraged them to go and conquer the land flowing with milk and honey. We therefore can conclude from these examples that it is our imagination that inflicts this pain on us. Once we realize this, the anxiety that we are feeling may well look like false evidence appearing real. Isn't this fear? False evidence appearing real? The Israelites were feeling scared or as grasshoppers in front of the Anakites or the Goliath. But they didn't see the strength of God who were protecting them. Today, we face numerous Goliaths in our day-to-day life. For example, our neighbors, our kids, our parenting tasks, loans, aging parents, sickness. In fact, the list is endless. It goes on and on. The question is, what is your focus on? Is it on God or on man? Fear paralyzes our body. It hijacks our thinking process. Fear isolates and freezes us from calling out for help. In fact, there is no greater fear than fear itself. Ask Jesus for help. Call out for His ever-loving presence, which is what help stands for. Did not Jesus Himself command us to do this? Go on asking and it will be given to you. Go on looking and you will find it. Go on knocking and the door will be opened to you. Let me inspire you and guide you to this old hymn. What a friend we have in Jesus.
What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and grief to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. Oh, because we do not carry everything to God in prayer.
Focus on Jesus and see beyond Goliath, the victory that Jesus has stored up for you in heaven. As human beings, we have overcome so many pandemics and epidemics. For example, the financial crash, the Zika virus, influenza, malaria, diphtheria, measles. Have we not all survived all these? In fact, fear kills more than these diseases. Now that we have learned how Satan uses fear, let's learn what faith is and how it works. Pistis is the Greek root word of faith, which means to be persuaded or come to trust. In short, it is God's divine persuasion and therefore different from human belief, that is confidence. Strong's dictionary defines faith as reliance upon Christ for salvation and appears 280 times in the New Testament of King James Version Bible. Faith is God's eternal warranty that guarantees the fulfillment of the revelation. Faith is like homecoming, answering your Father's eternal call. It is believing in things not yet seen, as written by Paul to a group of Christians who were thinking about going back to Judaism. Hebrews chapter 11. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now let me explain with an example from Abraham's life what faith is and how Abraham executed faith. Abraham was about 70 years old when the Lord called Abraham to come out from among his people and father's house in the land of Ur and to go ahead into the land flowing with milk and honey called Canaan. Abraham knew nothing of this place that he was asked to migrate to, probably never heard of this place in his life. God at this point did not abandon Abraham. Instead, God promised Abraham that He will show Abraham where to go. Secondly, God promised Abraham that He will make Abraham into a great nation and will bless him and will make him into a great source of blessing. God also continued to promise that He will bless those who bless Abraham and curse those who curse Abraham. At this point, all that Abraham needed to do was to obey. It was time that Abraham executed his faith in his new found God. It is recorded, Abraham obeyed and he went out not knowing whither he went. Personally, I believe that Abraham's father Terah and his brothers and others would have cautioned him about this adventure. But Abraham knew that the wise things of men are often ignorance dressed out in its best clothes. Abraham surely was aware that this journey would be a disaster to his worldly ambitions, but not to his faith. Faith is plain, simple obedience. Faith is all about forsaking everything and trusting in Him. Isn't that what faith is expanded as? Forsaking all, I trust in Him. Faith is intensely personal. Therefore, Abraham's faith was in a person. Abraham's faith was in obeying a person. Therefore, it is about directly taking a risk on Abraham's own future in a living God. Now, are you ready to take that step? Initially, faith is verbal, for we confess that we have faith in God. But then it leads to actions to confirm our confession that I believe in God. For example, each Sunday during our Mass, orally we affirm faith in our Nicene Creed by its recitation. We believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen. Now this Nicene Creed must not be left in the church for the next 6 days or until we go back to catch up the next service, but it needs to be put into practice. For Paul writes in Hebrews chapter 11, without faith, it is impossible to please God. In conclusion, faith is a divine persuasion, therefore is different from human beliefs such as confidence. Faith is like homecoming, answering your father's eternal call. Abraham, who was a pagan worshipper, who never knew God, when called to faith, traveled about 3,600 kilometers from the land of Ur in modern-day Iraq to Haran, then to Cairo in Egypt and back to Canaan. That's a total of 3,600 kilometers on foot, which is roughly Perth to Canberra or Srinagar to Kanyakumari. Do you see my point? Faith makes you travel, and travel in complete security and comfort. Faith makes you obey, whereas fear withdraws you from God. It separates or isolates you from the presence of God. It makes you flee from God. It stops you from asking help. Fear kept Israelites away from Goliath for 40 days. Fear kept the Israelites from wandering in the desert for about 40 years before they finally possessed the promised land called Canaan. Fear isolates. Faith conquers. My dear brothers and sisters, if you have been touched by this message, please share with your family and friends. Encourage and persuade them in this topic. Allow them to embrace it and confess it and live daily in faith. God bless.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Watch out for our next video, and until then, bye!